Hello dear students, how are you? I hope you are well by the grace of Allah. Welcome to my another class. This is Anwar Parvez, Assistant Teacher English, Rajar Government High School, Chunarugat, Hobbyganj. Dear students, in my today's class I will discuss about transformation of sentences. So you know that it is a very large topic. So this topic cannot be conducted in a class. I have to take several classes. For this reason I have divided this into various parts. This part 1, assertive, interrogative, imperative, optative, exclamatory, and in part 2 simple, complex, compound, part 3 active, passive, and part 4 superlative degree to comparative to positive. Okay, in today's class I will discuss affirmative to negative. Okay, so what is transformation? Actually transformation, when we transform a sentence to another sentence, we will keep in mind that we cannot change the meaning of the sentence. The form of the sentence will be changed, but the meaning of the sentence will be same if we want to transform a sentence to another sentence. Okay, now let's begin our class. Okay students, now let us discuss the rules of changing affirmative sentence into negative. Okay, first of all, the first rule in an affirmative sentence is there is only and alone, and if it modifies person, then in negative sentence you have to use none but instead of only or alone. For example, okay, look at this sentence. Only he can do the work. Here only it modifies person. For this reason, if we want to change this sentence into negative sentence, then we can use none but instead of only. So none but, and the rest of the sentence will be same. He can do the work. Okay, and if in affirmative sentence there is only and alone and it modifies thing, then you have to use nothing but instead of only or alone. Okay, for example, a child likes only sweets. So look at the sentence, a child likes only sweets. So only here modifies sweets and its thing. For this reason you have to use nothing but instead of only. So a child likes nothing but sweets. Okay, the next one, only, if only modifies number or age in affirmative sentence, then you have to use not more than or not less than instead of only in negative sentence. Okay, for example, he is only 20. Okay, here only it modifies the age of this subject. So here you have to use not more than or not less than. Remember, not always sits after auxiliary verb in negative sentence. So negative here, he is now not. So he is not, for this only more than or less than. So he is not more than 20. Okay dear students, so in affirmative sentence, first rule there, if only and or alone modifies person in affirmative sentence, you have to use none but instead of only. And if in affirmative sentence only or alone modifies thing, you have to use nothing but instead of only or alone. And if only in affirmative sentence modifies number or age, you have to use more than or less than and not in negative sentence. Okay, now move to the next rule. Okay. Rule 2. In an affirmative sentence, there is must or have to or has to. Okay. If in affirmative sentence there is must, have to or has to, in negative sentence you have to use cannot but instead of must, have to or has to, or you can use cannot help. But remember, if you use cannot help, you have to add ing with the main verb. But if you use cannot but, you need not change anything of the sentence. So follow the example. We must obey our parents. So here must, and you can use cannot but. Okay, first we use cannot but instead of must. We cannot but the rest of the sentence, obey our parents. Okay, but if you use cannot help instead of must, have to or has to, then you have to add ing with this main verb. For example, we cannot help, instead of must we use we cannot help, then obey main verb, add ing, then rest of the sentence. Okay. Now next rule. If in an affirmative sentence there is both dash dash and or just and. Okay, if in an affirmative sentence there is both dot dot and or just and, then you have to use in negative sentence not only dot dot but also. Okay, for example, both Raju and Adib will come. Okay, so here both and, so you can use not only instead of both, not only Raju. For this and you can use but also, but also Adib. So not only Raju but also Adib will come. Okay, but if in an affirmative sentence if there is no both, just and, for example Raju and Adib will come, okay, you can use not only and but also for and in negative sentence. Okay, so if in affirmative sentence there is both that dot dot and or just and, you can use not only dot dot but also in the negative sentence. Okay, next rule. Rule 4. If in affirmative sentence there is every, then in negative sentence you can use there is no. Instead of every you can use there is no, then after every there is a word, noun, then verb. So in negative sentence you can use there is no instead of every, then the next word plus but plus rest of the sentence. Okay, this is the first structure. If in affirmative sentence there is every dot dot verb, then you can use there is no but, then rest of the sentence will remain same. For example, every mother loves her child. Okay, now every, then word noun, every mother loves verb. So what should we do? There is no instead of every. Okay, there is no, then this word mother. Okay, then but plus rest of the sentence. Okay, loves her child. Okay, this is number one structure. Instead of every, you can use there is no. And another, you can change it negative sentence by another way. For example, you can use no instead of every plus the word after every and the verb of the opposite word of verb. Okay, so in a negative sentence, if you use no instead of every, then you have to change the verb, you have to use the opposite word or antonym of the verb into negative sentence. For example, every, we use no, then mother. Okay, every mother. So here loves, the opposite word of love is hate. Okay, no mother hates, then rest of the sentence her child. So students, if you use no instead of every, then you have to change the verb. It will be the antonym in the negative sentence. Now another structure, you can change this sentence into negative by following another structure. So instead of every, you can use there is no plus the word after every, and here instead of but, you can use ho. Okay, but the problem is if you use there is no, if you use ho, then you have to use the negative form of verb. That means there is no dot dot plus ho. If you use ho, then you have to use negative form in negative sentence if you want to change affirmative sentence of including every to a negative sentence. For example, if we change this word into negative form by following this structure, okay, every, there is no, then the word after every mother. Okay, there is no mother. Okay, there is no mother ho. Okay, ho. Now the negative form of the verb love. So there is no auxiliary verb, we have to bring auxiliary verb to make this verb negative. So it is present indefinite tense. For this reason there will be do or does. As mother is third person singular number, there will be does. Okay, does not. So there is no mother who does not then love her child. Okay, so if there is every in affirmative sentence, you can change this sentence into negative form by following these three structures. Now it's up to you which one is easy, you should follow this one. Okay, so the first one is there is no plus null plus but, then rest of the sentence will remain same. And in second one, instead of every, you have to use no, then the opposite form of the verb. And In third one, if instead of every there is no plus who, then negative form of the verb. That means you have to change the sentence into negative. Okay, so I think this one is more easier. So this one is easier, so you should follow this. Okay, the next rule. In affirmative sentence, there is as soon as. Then in negative, instead of as soon as, you have to use no sooner had. Then subject plus verb 3 plus then subject plus verb 2 means verb in past form. Okay, so look at the structure. If in affirmative sentence there is as soon as, in negative sentence instead of as soon as you can use no sooner had, but no sooner had follows a specific structure. After no sooner had, you have to use the verb in past participle form, then subject, and next sentence will follow the verb in past form. Okay, look at the example. As soon as the thief saw the police, comma, he ran away. Okay, make it negative sentence. As soon as, use no sooner had. No sooner had, then subject the thief. The thief, here is saw, verb in past form, but here you have to use verb in past participle form. As there is had, the verb will be past participle form. So no sooner had the thief seen the police. Okay, then for this comma you have to use then subject he, verb in past form, ran away. Okay, so no sooner had the thief seen the police, then he ran away. Okay, if in affirmative sentence there is always, in negative sentence you have to use never plus opposite word. It can be verb, it can be adjective, it can be noun. Okay, or it can be adverb. So if in affirmative sentence there is always, you have to change it into by using never instead of always, then opposite word. For example, she is always irregular. Okay, so she is always irregular, there is always, so you can use never instead of always. She is never, then opposite word, irregular, regular. As we cannot change the meaning of the sentence, for this reason there will be opposite word. Okay, we can use another example. She always comes late. So she for always, never, she never comes early. Okay, the opposite of late, early. Okay, now next rule. If in affirmative sentence there is sometimes, In negative sentence, instead of sometimes, you have to use not always, not plus always. So this not will be written after auxiliary verb. So sometimes, for example, he sometimes goes to school. Okay, here is sometimes. Instead of sometimes, we have to use always in negative sentence and not. So where should we use not? Not will be used after auxiliary verb, but in this sentence there is no auxiliary verb. In affirmative sentence, if there is no auxiliary verb and if we want to make it a negative sentence using not, then you have to use auxiliary verb do, does or did according to tense. So here is the present indefinite tense, that's why, and subject is third person singular number. For this reason there will be auxiliary verb does. So he does not. For sometimes, use always. So he does not always go to school. Okay, the next one, relate 2 so that. So in affirmative sentence, if there is 2 2, then in negative sentence, instead of this one you use so ... For this one you can use that, and after that subject plus cannot oblique could not plus verb. Okay, in affirmative sentence, if there is 2, in negative sentence there will be so, for this 2 there will be that. After that subject cannot. If for present tense, if there is present tense before 2, then it will be cannot, and if there is past tense it will be could not. Okay, as example, he is too weak to walk. So it is affirmative sentence 2 ... 2. Now he is, for this 2, so he is so weak, for this 2, that he is so weak that. Now subject, he subject will be he. Now cannot or could not, as it is present tense, that's why it will be cannot. He cannot verb walk. Okay, and another thing, if this one is past tense, he was too weak to walk. So the negative would be he was so weak that he, so past tense, could not. He could not walk. Okay. So next rule, if in affirmative sentence there is many, in negative sentence there will be not plus a few. Okay, for example, there are many schools in the village. Okay, for many we can use a few in negative sentence. So there are auxiliary verb not. So there are not, for many, a few. There are not a few schools in the village. Okay, and another rule, if in affirmative sentence there is a few, In negative sentence there will be not many. So I can give this one as example. There are a few schools in the village. Then the negative will be there are not. Instead of a few, you can use many schools in the village. Okay. And the next rule, in affirmative sentence there is much. In negative sentence there will be not, a little. Okay, for example, there is much water in the pond. Okay, instead of much, use a little. There is not much, a little. There is not a little water in the pond. Okay, and if in affirmative sentence there is a little, then in negative sentence you can use not much. Okay, take this example. If in affirmative sentence there is a little, then in negative sentence there will be much instead of a little. Okay, not will be added after auxiliary verb. Okay, dear students, so these rules are more easier because you can follow the one thing instead of another thing using in negative sentence. And the last one I am going to discuss. In affirmative sentence, if you want to make an affirmative sentence into negative, you have to use some opposite words, that means some antonyms of the words in affirmative to make it negative. Okay, so using opposite words. Okay, for example, I am a good boy. As we cannot change the meaning, so we have to use the opposite word of noun, adjective, verb or adverb in affirmative sentence to make it negative. Okay, so here I am. Remember, in this case you have to use not after auxiliary verb to make a sentence into negative sentence. So I am not a, the opposite word of good will be bad boy. So the meaning will remain same. Another example, he is sincere to his duty. So negative, he is not. The negative form of opposite word of sincere will be insincere. To his duty. Okay, another example, I remember you. Okay, to make it a negative sentence, we have to use not for after auxiliary verb, but in this sentence there is no auxiliary verb. For this reason we have to bring auxiliary verb. So if the sentence is present indefinite, the auxiliary verb will be do or does. If the sentence is past indefinite, the auxiliary verb will be did. This sentence is present indefinite tense. For this reason we have to use do or does. The subject is first person here, so the auxiliary verb will be do, then not, and opposite word of remember, forget. I do not forget you. Okay students, these are the examples of making an affirmative sentence to negative by using opposite words of noun, adjective, verb or adverb in affirmative sentence. So for this reason you have to learn a lot of opposite words, that means antonyms of the root words. Okay dear students, this all about affirmative to negative. And if you want to make a negative sentence into affirmative, just follow the reverse rules. Okay, there is a chart, you can follow this chart and the rules in details that I have discussed in front of you, and I hope you have noted down all the examples and rules. I hope you will keep practicing all these things at home. See you in the next class. Thank you for attending my class. Allah Hafiz.